what we've recognized is that if you want to do a storytelling approach where you need to think about storytelling from a top-down perspective, we need to put some structure around how to do that. And so up until the latter part of 2015, most of the programs were built on an approach that was defined on a customer-by-customer basis. And what we've done over the last several months is build a framework that we can now enable any program for any customer in any industry with any means of reaching the customer to fall into a framework that allows you to think about use of data and personalization at a macro level across the life cycle. So this is a new framework that we've just introduced. Actually, this is the first day that this is available in the public domain. And this is a new framework that we've introduced as part of this approach. Now, some of our newer prospects and newest customers may recognize some of this terminology as this is the way we've started working. But we're looking to now take this and extend it as a core approach to how we engage both legacy and new programs. So the first thing to think about when you want to tell a story is who's the audience? Who are we telling the story to? So if you think about a welcome story, the audience is anybody who recently completed a transaction. Okay, that's a simple definition of an audience. However, you can break that audience down into, are they a new customer or an existing customer? So now I've created a segment. And you can determine, is this a product enhancement or a brand new capability? So as you go through a process of defining that audience, did they buy via the digital or did they buy via human interaction? You can break that audience down into subsegments. And then you ask yourself, do I want to personalize at the audience level or do I want to personalize to each segment at the individual segment level? So that's a first level of thought process around personalization. So the audience is the who. Who are we going to tell the story to? The next thing to think about is the why. What are the goals we're trying to achieve by telling a story to this audience? Are we trying to drive revenue growth? Are we trying to drive churn reduction? Are we trying to improve Net Promoter Score? Are we trying to take cost out of service? Or are we trying to drive a strategic imperative like digital adoption? So the goals, whether it's an individual goal for an individual story or a set of goals that you want to achieve by telling multiple stories, you can think about the goals being broken down on a goal level. So I want to increase revenue. And you can think about that at the KPI level. I want to increase the number of orders. I want to increase the value per order. I want to increase the number of items per order. So taking it down to each level of more granular detail, how do I change the behavior of my customers through the power of storytelling? Okay? Start with the who, move to the why, and then we talk about reach, which is the where and when. So where is the channel? Am I going to make this available on my website pre-authentication or in the portal post-authentication or in my mobile app or via email or via SMS or via all of those channels? That's where we'll engage. And then there's the when. Is it at a specific touch point 3 days after an event? Or is it based on someone authenticating into the portal and that event itself is the trigger for an engagement? So storytelling has the who, has the why, has the when and where, and then you have the story itself, which is the what. And the way Shmulik talked about before, the idea of scenes, so that's a video-centric approach to storytelling. But really at the heart of a scene is a topic that you're trying to communicate. So the idea is to tie topics to goals. And so a topic is relevant to an audience if it can move the needle on a goal for that audience. And then topics can be included or excluded in one story or can be used across multiple stories. So the idea is that if you build the topics in an appropriate fashion and they're relevant to multiple different audience profiles, then you have the ability to enable storytelling that leverages these core assets, these topics or these scenes in a video. Then we start talking about the how. And the how really gets into, first and foremost, the data. So if it's data-driven personalized storytelling, we have to have access to data. And the data is actually leveraged on 3 different axes. First and foremost, the data allows you to define the audience. So a transaction was complete, yes, that's a data variable. The second data variable is this existing or new customer. Third data variable is which channel was it purchased, over our website or in the store. Those are all data variables that allow you to uniquely define and segment the audience. The second data variable is for an individual person in that audience, is a topic relevant or not? So if I'm an existing customer and I already have a login to the portal, then the topic of why use the portal is not relevant to me. So as an individual, an audience of 1, that topic is irrelevant and it should be excluded from the video. So first of all, selecting the audience. Second of all, defining the topics that are relevant to a unique audience member. And then the third thing is, if a topic is relevant, how do I personalize that topic to that individual? So if it's I bought a device in a store, so it's which device in which store and with what plan. And so the idea is to be able to communicate to me on a one-to-one personalized basis, because I am an individual inside of that audience, so an audience of 1. And then lastly, what's the creative approach, the visual look and feel of the story you're telling? And again, this framework we believe is relevant regardless of whether you're using video as the storytelling medium, right? You could use words and pictures, or you could use the power of sight, sound, and motion and leverage that as a means of telling the story. So do you want the creative approach to be using existing video content? Or do you want the approach to be, we want to create video assets that are unique to this story? So this framework allows us to think about the first story. You define the initial audience, you define the initial goals, you determine how you'll reach that audience, you determine the story you're going to tell and the topics or scenes that are part of that story, what data powers it with what creative approach,